Hi, my name is Richard Roberts. I'm a medical doctor. I also have a doctorate, a Ph.D. in Biophysics. I got them at University of Pennsylvania. I trained in internal medicine internship at Harvard, and I was a CEO in the pharmaceutical industry for 24 years. This video is about the coronavirus, but I'm not going to just give you a rehash of all the things that you've heard all over the news and all over people's videos. Hopefully I'm going to give you some novel insights, novel ideas, and also this video will be both for the more sophisticated or scientifically trained people, plus for everyone who does not have a formal scientific education. I hope everyone will find the information here very, very useful. What I'm going to speak about, the topics are the extent of the disease across the country, and I'm really interested in the United States. Then the economic impact, but I don't mean just the grand economy. I'm talking about what's happening to people individually and what the issues are and how they're going to deal with it. Then I'm going to talk about the stock market, both what the stock market is telling us in terms of the information. There's a lot of false information going out there. And I have to tell you, by the way, I've seen medical experts on. They absolutely don't know what they're talking about. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them. So also, as having been a CEO in the pharmaceutical industry, there's a lot of false information out there from companies giving false hope. I'm going to give a dose of reality to all of it. I've dealt with the drug approvals. I've dealt with the FDA. I understand the medical consequences. That's what I'm going to try to give to you now. Then I'm going to speak about the geopolitical aspects of this. There are very critical geopolitical aspects I think people are not thinking of. Then we'll go into the medical issues. Again, not general things that you've heard everywhere. Hopefully some new ideas, also some information you can look up yourself. And then we'll get to including a potential cure. And then we'll get to a conclusion. So first, I do have my notes. The extent of the disease. The government, the United States government, when I speak about the government, I mean the United States, the authorities have now told us that they're no longer trying for containment, they're trying for mitigation. In other words, it used to be, if they found out, meaning 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago in the United States, if the government saw that somebody tested positive for coronavirus, they would then, and I'll call it corona just for short, the government would try to find out everywhere they were, everyone that they interacted with, and then try to track those people down, get them all in isolation. That's to contain the virus from spreading basically everywhere. Now, I told my family, I was watching this virus spreading when it started out in China, going back in early January. I told my family, we have a family chat, that this is very dangerous. I don't see any way this can be contained because of the incubation period. That's the issue. When anyone talks to you about stay away from somebody with a fever, someone with a fever and a cough, they're just missing the boat. The issue of this is, if someone gets the flu, when they get infected with the flu virus, they generally come down with symptoms within 1 to 2 days. So they don't walk around infecting everyone. The issue with this virus is that people frequently can take up to 14 days that they're infected with the virus. They're walking around infecting everyone around them, and they don't even know it. And it could take 14 days till they come down with symptoms. Now, there are reports out of China that it can take up to 4 weeks before people start to show symptoms. What that means is you cannot contain this virus. When you see videos of people in airports take a little temperature gun and they're putting it up to people's foreheads, taking their temperatures, this is just so misleading. I just can't believe it. It doesn't matter. Look, you don't want to be around somebody if they're coughing and they have a fever, because they could very likely they do have coronavirus at this point. But that doesn't stop the disease from spreading. The government has finally been fully open with the public. No longer can they try to contain the disease. You can try to protect yourself by being in isolation. And if you want a video on that, I can give you details on the recommendations. But the idea that we're going to stop it from spreading to virtually everybody except those who are really maintaining strict containment is just false and misleading. Now I want to show you two graphs. These come from a great website called worldometers.info. WORLDO, the letter O, meters, plural, METERS.info. Now this is showing the United States active cases as of March 16th. Look, this is the days. Let's see. This starts at February 15th and it goes to March 16th. And you can see what's happening with the number of active cases. They're just going up and starting to go up at a hyperbolic rate. Now this is the deaths. Now understand, we are a country of 330 million people. As of March 16th, there were less than 100 deaths. But look at how the curve is going. This is the days, February to March. It is going hyperbolically upward. And that's the point. This is not going to be contained, and the deaths are going to start coming fast and furious, as well as the people who are getting sick from it. Now, I want to talk about the economic impact. This virus is an economic catastrophe. Make no mistake about it. The stock market has reacted with that knowledge, but people are not going to be going to work. I feel my heart breaks for stores, restaurants, retail stores, stores in malls, service industry, theaters, entertainment places. This is just a harsh reality. They're economically going down. Many of them are going to go out of business. The only thing government can do now is consider this to be like a state of war, where if we would spend $1 trillion to fund the military in a state of war, we're going to have to spend that $1 trillion trying to give money and trying to save individual people who are out of work, and also companies, small businesses from going out of business. Now, the largest corporations, the wealthiest ones that have cash, they'll survive this. But the danger is, and the most suffering is going to be by most businesses, which are small businesses in America. They are really the economic heartbeat of America, and they're going to get crushed. Also, Wall Street will tell you that the economic boom that we have has been consumer driven. It's been driven by people going out and buying things. People are not going to go out now. People are going to be saving money, rightfully so. People are not going to have the money to spend. We had an unbelievably vigorous Trump economy. Things were booming. Unemployment was very low. It was a blue collar boom. The average worker, he's bringing jobs back to the United States. Unfortunately, because of this virus, things are crashing right before our eyes. So the government is going to have to use money to try to support individuals and small companies to get them through this. Let's see. Now, there are people who live on government assistance. There's no new programs needed for them. They're still going to get the government check. It's the people that work for a living who are now going to be laid off. There simply isn't going to be business, to support them. They're the ones who are going to need the check. And I have to tell you, thank God the government is doing and continuing to look into ways of getting money to these people who would have, with their integrity, with their dedication, they were working at jobs, they're making money, and now they're simply going to have to be supported. I don't believe with loans. I believe with grants, money that's not to be paid back. Now, when you start giving out tons of money like this, there's going to be corruption. There are going to be people getting money who don't deserve it. To that, I want to say, we have to accept that some corruption is going to occur now, and we have to trust that the law enforcement, criminal enforcement agencies will take their do their investigations after we get through the crisis. But right now, it's all hands on deck. Right now, we've got to get people through this period of time. Now, I want to talk about the elderly. There are going to be millions of elderly people who are going to pass away during this virus. They are the most exposed group. I'm going to talk about them a little later with some hard facts. It's interesting. perversely interesting. I don't even want to say this, but I am. This could change actually the whole economic situation when it comes to Social Security and Medicare and benefits like that, with this stepwise reduction in the elderly population. We don't want it, and I have to say it's a good sign of a healthy society that young people are very concerned for their older grandparents. Hey, I'm one of them, but just watch if there could be a profound effect on Social Security if there is a dramatic stepwise reduction in the elderly population. Now I'm going to talk about the stock market. First, a disclaimer. I'm not telling anybody, I'm not taking responsibility for anybody's, whether they buy, they sell, they invest. But let's look at what the stock market has to tell people, what lessons it has for us. And also, I'll give you some of my opinions on investing. Now, analysts are talking about that this catastrophe economically is more like 9/11 than it is 2008. In 2008, because people were defaulting on their mortgages, banks didn't have money. That's called liquidity. They didn't have the money to give depositors. That's not happening here. The banks have plenty of money, and the government is going to make sure that the banks have plenty of cash, that no matter what, the banks are going to be able to give you the cash when you want it. So it doesn't look like 2008 in that regard. Also, 2008 was sort of built up on a false economy. Housing prices going up and up and up. People borrowing against those housing values, not having actually worked for anything, and then the housing values came down, crash. It doesn't look like 2008. In 9/11, when the World Trade Centers came down, there was also a stock market crash. But this is not that situation at all, because when the World Trade Centers came down and the stock market crashed, people still went out to stores, people still went out for entertainment, people spent money, people still went to their jobs, they were still producing goods, which is the basis of the economy. That's not what we're facing here either. And that's why this is really a severe catastrophe, because you're talking about now a major reduction, a stepwise hit in the productivity of the country producing services and goods, and people losing their jobs, and small businesses going out of business. Big companies with a lot of money can survive. Restaurants, I'm sorry to say, most of them are not going to make it. All these retail stores, I think most of them are not going to make it. It breaks my heart to say this. This is a real, true economic catastrophe we're facing. Also, experts will tell you that we have been in a consumer-driven economy. I mentioned this earlier. The consumers buying goods, the people, the middle class, the main population of the country, working at jobs, getting paid, producing things, and going out and then buying things, which causes companies to be able to hire more people, keep people employed, and money generates. That's coming to an end here. The consumer is not going to be going out to these stores, and that's really what we're looking at as a real economic catastrophe here. This is not going to snap back right after, it's not going to be like a point where all of a sudden it snaps back, because companies go out of business. They don't necessarily just start up new businesses again. Restaurants that go out of business, they don't have product, they don't have food. The customers don't necessarily just all of a sudden it's like a race starts, a gun goes off, and all the races start. It's not like that. So this is going to be a sustained economic downturn. I'm not saying for years and years, but realistically, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, and it's going to be real economic damage from that. There are going to be, as I said before, millions of funerals. And I want to just go through some charts. On worldometers.info, you can find this chart, which has this table, which has the death rates per age group. You'll find it on Worldometers. Now, Also go on the internet. So it says people 80 years and above, the death rate for all cases, not meaning people that are confirmed, but you just assume that a lot of people are infected that we don't even know about. So that lowers the numbers. So we're not talking about confirmed cases. If you look at people who are confirmed to have coronavirus, over 80 years of age, 22% die. 1 in 5 people die. Still, the death rate, if you take all the cases, you're looking at 15% dying. 70 to 79 years old is 8% death rate. And 60 to 69 years old, 3.6% death rate. What does that mean? So just, on the internet, got this off the internet, legitimate site, look at the population of the country by age, and then just multiply how many people are in that age group times the death rate for that age group. And that's what I've done here. I'll hold it up, but I'm going to read the numbers out to you because it'll go too quickly for you to see. Briefly, we're looking at from 60 to 69 years old, 1.3 million deaths. 70 to 79 years old, 1.8 million deaths. 80 years and older, 1.8 million deaths. The total number of deaths we're looking at, just from people 60 and above, is 4.9 million. Now, that's if they don't have any diseases. If you look at, we call it comorbidities. That means someone who is sick with more than one medical diagnosis, more than one illness at a time. We go to another chart here. Oops. Which is the death rates by comorbidity, meaning if someone has another disease. Here's what it looks like, but I'm going to read it out to you. Just briefly. Taking the best case scenario. People who have diabetes, 7% death rate. High blood pressure, hypertension, 6% death rate. A chronic respiratory disease is 6%. Cardiovascular disease, heart disease, 10%. So without looking at any of the other diseases, just looking at the pure age, you're talking about 4.9 million deaths in just the 60 and older group. If you add in them having one extra disease, like high blood pressure, which most older people have, diabetes, you're looking at 15 million deaths from coronavirus in the United States. Now, that explains why the governments of the world are freaked out. That's what's going on here. How many people die from the flu each year? In the United States, on average flu, we lose 35,000 people a year. That's a regular flu. Regular flu season, it generally ranges from 15,000 deaths to about 59,000 deaths. That means you're having, so take an average, let's call it 35,000 deaths. We're looking at 15 million. And I'm going to fold this paper over so you can see. I'm going to express 35,000 as, say, in terms of millions. That shows you 15 million versus 0.035 million from flu. So I'm at 15 million from coronavirus, and that's a conservative figure. This is much more deadly than the flu, and that's why this is really a catastrophe. Now, going on. Again, I'm not taking responsibility for your investing decisions, but you're supposed to buy low and sell high. Well, the stock market has already crashed. It's down 25-30%. If you're panicked when you see that number and you sell, you're not buying low and selling high. You're selling low. You're giving your money away. Is this the bottom? Nobody knows. But I strongly believe the economy is coming back, and I believe that you'd be well served not to sell, and if you can buy, now is the time to buy. But to buy low, the stock market is only low when everybody's saying the world's coming to an end. So you're going to have the guts, the courage, and the conviction to buy low and hold on to it and don't look at it. Don't look at it for years. And I think that you're going to be greatly rewarded. Now, what are the best investments at this point? I'm going to speak what looks like conceptually, but it's really true. The best investment in the stock market is the United States of America. If you compare all the countries in the world, we have industrious, hardworking people, which is not what every country in the world has. We have freedom, we have democracy, and we have reward of people who produce. A lot of countries in the world don't have that. If there's one country that should come roaring back from this and even dominate after this, it is the United States of America. Sorry to get political on you, but we need to hope that President Trump gets reelected. The success, the boom that we've had, especially for the middle class, the jobs coming back to America, the blue collar boom that we've had, is because of the policies that President Trump has enacted economically in the country. Now, Democrats will try to blame President Trump for what's happened now. We don't have enough test kits, for example. I want to give you two insights into this. The first thing is China, which has done the most testing of any country of its people. Last time I looked at it, they've checked just recently. They've done coronavirus checks on about 430 people out of every 1 million people. Basically, almost everybody doesn't get checked. Whether you have 1 test per million or 430 tests per million, most people are not getting checked. It's a ridiculous thing to try to claim that President Trump is somehow responsible for this issue. I'll give you another aspect to this. President Clinton was blamed and criticized by a lot of people for not killing Osama bin Laden in right after the 2003 World Trade. I'm sorry. Yeah, it wasn't 2003. I'm sorry, I forget the exact date. It was I think it was the 1997 bombing of the World Trade Centers, when car bombs or truck bombs were put in the basement. They blew up. It didn't bring down the World Trade Center, but the government knew that Osama bin Laden was involved, and at one point we had our missiles trained in on our sights on Osama bin Laden, and President Clinton did not give the order to kill Osama bin Laden. People have criticized President Clinton for this. It's wrong. It's a wrong criticism. Here's the reason. I'm sorry to say this. I'm just speaking the truth. Most people don't believe something. Most people don't react to something. Most people won't take major risks until they're slapped in the face with it, until there's bodies in the street. That's the sad truth. After the World Trade Centers came down in 9/11, almost nobody had any doubt that we had to go to war and that we were being attacked. But to blame President Clinton for not launching missiles years before that, the public very likely would not have gone for that. They would have criticized him, investigated him, claimed he's a warmonger. The same thing's going on here with President Trump and these testing kits. If he would have then started spending huge amounts of money on some virus that's in China that the government is concerned about, then you'd have all these people, oh, what are you worried about? You're spending all this money, who's getting the contracts? And it didn't make a difference anyway. The testing kits are not going to be able to give us the answers that we need. They'll give us sampling around. Now, let's go on. To invest in the United States, the safest way to do it is there's 3 stock symbols. One is called DIA, the other is SPY, and the other is QQQ. Those are index funds. They buy the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, or they buy the NASDAQ top companies. That's the best way to invest. Anybody tells you this company, that company, almost no one ever makes money doing that. Invest in America by investing in those broad measures of the economy. The risks of investing now. There's also risks of not investing. The risk of investing money now is the stock market could go lower. As I always say, in a catastrophe, the stock market goes to zero and the economy completely collapses. What do you care? Your money's not worth anything anyway. So I think you go ahead and invest. On the other side, if you don't invest money now and a cure comes out, which I'm going to speak about soon, then if a cure is announced, the stock market is going to leap upward by 8 or 10,000 points in a single day. That's my opinion. And you'll miss it. You're not going to have time to react to that. So I think the time to invest is now. The way smart people do it, and in my company, once we got billionaire type investors involved in the company, and I got to meet billionaire types of investing people, the way they do it is they always do things partially. They invest some of their money now when things are down. If things shoot up because there's a cure, great, they made money. What if I would have invested all my money now? They never do that. They never think that way. And then if things go down substantially further, they'll have more money to invest along the way. And if things shoot up also majorly, they can sell along the way. If they think it's going up further, they sell half. That's how the smart people and major investors do it. Now, going into geopolitical ramifications. I am not a conspiracy theory believing type of guy. United States did land on the moon. If you don't know it, if you're believing these crazy conspiracy theories, then just know that China and the Soviet Union, communist Soviet Union at the time, who are both our adversaries, they didn't doubt it. If they didn't doubt it, then I'm telling you it's true. Similarly, when people say 9/11, it's a conspiracy, this government, that government, baloney. Al-Qaeda took credit. Al-Qaeda was proud of it. Al-Qaeda continued to try to do it. It's just ridiculous. So I don't believe in conspiracy theories. So what I'm about to tell you is not a conspiracy theory. I think that this really has about a 98% chance of being true. This coronavirus that we're dealing with, to understand, there are thousands of coronaviruses. Some of them only cause colds, no big deal. I truly believe with 98% certainty that this is a Chinese government bioweapon. This is a biological weapon developed by the Chinese government. This is as the governor of New York stated recently, this is like the flu on steroids. It's like they took the coronavirus and they changed it to make it much, much more lethal and highly contagious. The Chinese government first tried to tell people that it came out of this wet market where people were buying live bats and snakes and alligators. But investigators have gone there, tested these animals. There's no coronavirus there. Now the Chinese government is trying to claim that the United States military made this. This is a Chinese bioweapon, and the Chinese government knows it. And I believe the Western governments all know this also for a fact. And the reason why they're not telling you this right now, which is good, they shouldn't be discussing this right now, is let's deal with the crisis right now. Let's get through this catastrophe, try to save people, try to get people better as quickly as we can, and try to keep people in quarantine. And now without containment, we're trying now mitigation, which is try to at least slow down the rate at which people are going to get infected. By the way, saw some expert on the stock market say yesterday, this is all going to be over in 2 weeks. Because people, they carry the virus for 14 days. Everybody's going to be in quarantine for 14 days. The ones that are sick will stay there. And the ones that are okay will come out for 14 days. This will be going on 14 days. No, sorry, it's not. There are plenty of people, and we're not going to keep the quarantine. It's almost impossible in a free country to keep a quarantine to the level that a dictatorship like China can do. So it's going to be spread out, stretched out. The government wants to say it's going to be over quickly, but on the other hand, the government wants to spread out or stretch out the time it's going to take for this virus to hit most people so that the hospitals will be able to deal with more of the sick people. Because hospitals only have a certain level of capacity, and the number of people who are going to come in, or who are already coming in sick to hospitals, is way beyond their ability to take care of people. It's way beyond that already. So you want to hopefully slow down the rate that people are getting sick, so that at least, as these people who are on respirators either die or get better, you'll have others will then in the future get sick and be able to get into the respirators, and not have the majority all at once who can't get onto respirators. So that's what the strategy is here. But it's not going to get better anytime soon. But after this is done, that's when I believe and I expect our leaders, the Western world, and the rest of the world also, I believe are going to make multi-trillion-dollar claims against China. How China is going to react to that, obviously, is going to be quite negative. What will happen in terms of conflict after that, I don't know. Maybe there'll be a worldwide boycott of China, ongoing, knowing that. But when you hear the government saying, "Oh, the issue here is that the Chinese government knew about how bad this was, and they didn't tell people early on," that's not the reason why China's to blame. China's to blame because this is a Chinese weapon that got out of a Chinese laboratory and is now causing mass destruction upon the world. Now, medical aspects of this. First, a disclaimer: you should go talk to your licensed medical doctor, and don't listen to me. Great, that's the end of that. Now, I told you about worldometers.info. It's a fantastic place to get information. The majority of the information that we have about how this virus acts is from China, and you need to know that there are racial differences. The differences between races of people is not just the color of the skin. It's not just the height. It's not just the structure of faces. There are also chemical differences between people. This may not be politically correct, but I can tell you in medicine, we don't shy away from discussing racial aspects of differences because it's important to treating people. We try to treat everybody. By the way, I'm retired, but physicians, medical science tries to treat everybody, but there are clearly differences. For example, we know that sickle cell anemia occurs almost only in black people. We know that thalassemias, beta thalassemia, you'll find in a Mediterranean population. Tay-Sachs disease, people in the United States, it's inherent, these are all genetic diseases. It's in Jews, but it's in Ashkenazi Jews, because in the area of Eastern Europe that most Ashkenazi Jews in the United States come from, that's where everybody, Jewish and not Jewish, that's where Tay-Sachs occurs. So there are definitely chemical differences. Black people tend to have lower white blood cell counts than white people. White blood cells are the cells that fight infections like viruses. Typically, when you do the test on a blood test, you'll find that black people will have white blood cell counts frequently around 3,000. You don't have to know what the density measurements are exactly. Let's go 3, and white people generally have about 6 to 8 in white blood cells. So you might say, "Oh boy, so black people have less white blood cells. They're going to be less able to fight off this virus." That might be true, or it might be the opposite. A lot of the damage of this virus is that it sets off the immune system, and it could be white people with more immune cells will have those immune cells get set off and do more damage than black people have done to them by the virus. We don't know. But just know that when we're looking at Chinese data as a vast majority of what we have, we don't know how that translates into American data, for Americans, for Hispanics, which are predominantly white, black, and Hispanics. Also, there's a receptor on cells called ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. You don't need to know about this. You don't need to know the details, but it's on the lungs. It's on the cells in the lung, and that is, as well as some other places in the body, and that's what this virus attaches to get into the cells, which is why this is attacking so much predominantly the respiratory system. How that is going to be a change, how that's going to be different between races, I don't know. We don't know how that's going to be different. We'll see. People tell you there's going to be a summer slowdown because the flu slows down in the summer. We don't know that. If you look in warm climates, this virus right now, in countries that are in warm climates, this virus right now is taking off very effectively. So sorry about that. So we just don't know if that's going to change. Now, let's talk about cures. First, zinc. It is well known among physicians that people who have viral infections of a throat, sore throat, if they'll use zinc lozenges, so they're sucking on the zinc lozenge, so the zinc is constantly bathing the back of their throat, so the virus there is always getting bathed in zinc, that will help to defeat a viral infection. There is, now please listen to the end of this. Don't just take the first sentence. There is some evidence, not fully proven to a full medical scientific conclusion. There's some evidence that zinc will defeat coronavirus inside the cells of the body. But here's the problem. The problem is the following. The biggest cell that you know is an egg. Picture an egg. I should have brought an egg for you to look at. The shell of the egg is like an outside of a cell. What's inside the egg is the inside of the cell, and what's outside the egg, meaning inside, looking your body, is all the water and the connective tissue and the blood. The blood. Those are outside the shell of the egg. Now, you know that fat and water, oil and water don't mix. That's why if you pour oil into a little cup of water, the oil will float. You mix them up, shake them up, and the oil separates and comes to the top because they don't dissolve in each other. The shell of an egg, not an egg, but imagine the shell of an egg is like the outside of a cell. That's made of fat, not the shell of an egg, but the outside of a cell. That shell is made of fat. Water can't dissolve in that. Inside the cell is water, outside the cell is water. Zinc dissolves in water. So if you take zinc by mouth, it goes into the water outside the cell, fine. But a virus attaches onto the outside of the cell, and it goes inside the cell, and that's where it reproduces, called replication, and there's very little zinc gets in there. So you need to make holes in the cell that will allow zinc in. If you just make any random holes in the cell, you'll kill the cell and die. But there is scientific evidence that there are some drugs that are common, very cheap, that might make holes in the cell that allow zinc in. And this might cure people who are sick with coronavirus. We don't know until the full scientific experiments are done. There are from physicians some reports, though, that they believe they've had success in some patients. Those drugs are chloroquine, which is used for malaria. Also hydroxychloroquine, a brand name is Plaquenil. These are all available generically. It's a very common drug. Do not go out and buy it. Do not go out and take it. You don't need to take zinc. It's not going to get inside the cells. You need to wait until we get more scientific evidence. But this might work. And if it does, it would be a miraculous save, a miraculous turnaround for us. There are other drugs being worked on by companies. Companies put out big statements. Oh, they're working on 1,000 drugs, blah, blah, blah. Okay. The news needs to talk about something. Financial news has to talk about something. People who run companies want their stock price to go up. Until there's a drug that's shown to really work, don't get too excited about it. So far, we don't have anything proven to work, and don't get your hopes up. I think the zinc thing with chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine or some other common drugs may work, but we'll see. We don't know yet. And that's why I say in investing in the stock market, someone who doesn't invest now is also taking a risk, because if it does turn out from widespread reports that hydroxychloroquine with zinc works, bang, you'll see a turnaround quickly. The best place to get information that you know is legitimate is cdc.gov. It stands for the Centers for Disease Control. cdc.gov. There's a whole lot of government agencies and people that are ineffective, but cdc.gov are scientists, physicians. They really are dedicated to saving and helping the American public. It's a great place to get information. Concluding here, we really are in a situation analogous to war. There is I believe with almost certainty, not certain, but almost certainty, that we've been struck by a weapon from a foreign government. They didn't intentionally attack us. They were sloppy. It got out and it hit them first, but now we're suffering the consequences. And in a sense, they bombed our cities. Our government is going to have to spend $1 trillion+ to keep people who work for a living with their paychecks. You give everybody $1,000 now. That's not the right thing to do. People who don't work for a living, who get government assistance, they don't need to get more money. It's the people that work for a living and who lose their jobs. They need money, and it's the companies that employ them. They need money. And I hate to say it, but it's not. We're not talking about loans. You know, if you spend all that millions, or that trillion on tanks and bombs and bullets, and then stuff gets destroyed, stuff gets obsolete, you don't get that money back. This is going to have to be a further debt burden that our country takes on. After this is over, then we'll talk about reparations from China. Until then, it's all hands on deck.